Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review, because I just can't get enough of them lately, apparently. And this one is for the YA fantasy, sci-fi, maybe a little bit of both, The Hunted by Louisa Ellemind, which is ironically the name of another indie book that I'm also going to be reviewing. So here's hoping we can keep them separate. But The Hunted revolves around four sisters with supernatural powers who are essentially scattered to the four winds in order to escape these beings that killed their mother. And over the course of the story, they discover things about these beings called the Strangers, at least a little bit. We'll get into that. And you discover more about the way they grew up with the man called Father, who was not that great, i.e. abusive, and basically them running around, maybe some kidnappings, some rescuing from those kidnappings, further kidnappings. A lot of kidnappings is what I'm saying. But regardless, when I first learned about this story, I was really interested because I love sistery stories, or stories with sisters involved. So I was really drawn to that aspect. And of course, a lot of it is focused on the relationships between the sisters. You have Phoenix, who is the second oldest but wants to be the leader, and she's very fiery and has fire powers and kind of is the most psychopathic, light of psychopathy, a lot of murderous intent from 10-year-old girls. They're all 10, by the way. We're talking quadruplets. You have Glacia, who is all focused on ice powers, and yes, the names are very on the nose. The air-based sister is called Arin, A-R-I-N, and the water-based sister is called Ariel. I'm pretty sure after the mermaid. So it's all very on the nose, but, can let that slide. The big thing going into it, I got a lot of Maximum Ride vibes. If you've ever read that, it's kind of a similar premise, especially with all the kidnapping, with just constant kidnapping in various ways. I do wish there'd been a little bit more interactions between the sisters specifically. It seemed like they spent a lot of time separated and then come back together and separated and over and over again. It did a very fast moving plot. I'm not quite sure exactly how long the book is in terms of word count, because the copy I have is about 370 pages, which is a decent sized book. However, I read super fast, fast even for me. I think at one point I might have actually done 3 pages a minute, which is kidlit fast for me, or really cheesy poetry book fast for me. So I'm thinking that the formatting probably plays into it, and that probably has something to do with why it moves so fast, and as a result everything feels fast. And this is a debut, and it has a lot of debut struggles in it. The big thing that I noticed is there's a lot of dialogue, mostly dialogue and thoughts, and it's very light on things like descriptions of places or descriptions of actions. There was 1 or 2 times in which I didn't realize this big action point had happened until a character said something, and I had to go back and reread because it was such a little bloop. It happened. So I would definitely advise working on that a little bit, because a lot of the times I'm like, I don't quite understand where this character is, or the kind of area she's supposed to be in, and I don't quite understand what was just done. But the bones of the plot were there, which is what I've discovered in a lot of indie books is almost always, even in an indie book where the technical skill is a little bit lacking, the plot's usually there. The ideas are there, but unfortunately, and I've said this before in other reviews, the technical skill and the effort in that matters more than the ideas you have. And I know that's a hard truth for a lot of writers, but you could have the best idea, but if you can't execute it well, the idea doesn't mean anything, or at least not much. But I did enjoy its aspect. I'm trying not to spoil anything because it's not in the synopsis and it feels like it was supposed to be a reveal, but there are some sci-fi aspects that come in that I really enjoyed. But because the plot moves so fast, even some of those reveals are like, oh hey, big secret reveal, big like your life is a lie reveal. Next, like, no, what? We just move on. There was also some issues with tone in that it's supposed to be YA, but it almost at certain times read mid-grade, which it makes a certain sort of sense because all of the sisters are 10, and when all of your protagonists for the most part are 10, it leans toward mid-grade, even if they're murderous, homicidal 10-year-olds. But then there would also be like swear words and like gory-ish scenes, so it's not like I can just say, oh, it was mislabeled as a YA, you can read it as a mid-grade. No, there are some very non-mid-grade moments involved in the book, but at times it reads like a mid-grade. So there's a lot of tonal shifts. Even the characters who were adults, because there were adult characters, would sometimes speak more similar to the girls than to adults, which might just be an issue of, once you get in the writing flow and you get in the style, you kind of stick to it, and it's hard to switch between. Like I said, this is a debut, and so it might have some of those debut struggles. And there was also a found family, and I'm always caught between, I love found family. It's one of my favorite tropes. It's one of my holy trifecta of tropes. But because it's one of my holy trifecta of tropes, and I've read a lot of found families, I have a baseline for what I consider to be, decent found family-ness and the creation of them. And there was one part where I could flat out see that she wanted this group to become a found family, up to the point where like characters were already like thinking of each other in that kind of familial way, but like it didn't feel deserved. Like they hadn't had enough positive interactions, even on a base level, to like each other, much less suddenly feel like beholden to each other or suddenly feel like possessive or connected to each other like a found family would. So that kind of took me out of the story. It developed eventually, just before the story told you it had, after the story had told you it had developed, if that makes sense. I might be rambling a little bit too much in this review. In general, I would give this book 3 stars. It was decent for a debut. The plot was there, but there are enough technical struggles that I probably would not continue with this series. But again, I would be interested to see what Louisa Ellemind comes up with next. And I do think that if you liked Maximum Ride, as I did back in the day, I grew out of it, but I did back in the day enjoy it. It's slightly more homicidal than Maximum Ride, but if you liked that series, you might want to check this one out. Now, if you are an indie author and interested in getting a review, please email me. I will have my email down in the description below, as well as my review policy. Please give that a read through. It saves us a lot of time and answers a lot of questions. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.